I don't ever discount the strength of a woman's intuition.
I know.
And I know a lot of women that generation know some shit was going down.
Right.
100, because you had to.
Yeah.
What are you done? I always say that's why, like, I respect, like, no disrespect, like my mom's generation's better than ours because they parented on instinct.
Right.
Like they didn't have like it's in tracker on Elijah's phone and he's at the library.
Right.
Like my mom, this is one of my favorite stories, and we'll get started. But like my mom was on a first date with the guy that was going to be her husband. So this is like 1988, you know, and my mom was at dinner. Clearly it was going well because they were going to get married. They didn't know that yet. And my mom goes, I need to go back to the house right now. And he's like, okay, this is 1988.
In the middle of a date.
The middle of a date that was going to go so well. She's going to marry this guy.
And she said, I need to go home.
Yes. She goes home. Black mom intuition, 80s. Goes home and she pulls up in our driveway. She gets up. She's banging on the front door. No one's answering her door. So like, you already know what time it is.
There's no cell phones. There's
no
pagers, nothing.
So her date, then my ex-stepdad, he goes down the driveway to the back of the house, and my mom says she just hears him yell, "Get back in that window." There was a boy's leg hanging out of the and he was like, nah, dog, get back in that window. Like my mom caught my sister on just Black woman instinct. Just like, this is not right.
Like Spidey.
Yes.
Like literally Spidey senses at dinner. Ding, ding, ding,
that's
ding,
why,
ding,
that's
ding,
why
ding,
like
ding.
I still don't always use my GPS. Like everybody, I tell Merritt all the time, stop giving your whole life over to these devices. They're handy, but like you shouldn't be in your own city. Like, I don't know how to get to the downtown bus station.
You need to learn.
You should know where you are, dog. Look up. What buildings do you see? You know, so it's like,
I know we came from a generation where there was no, I mean, you had the almanac, but you had no, what was it called? McNally?
Yeah, Rand McNally. Yeah.
Oh my God.
You used to have to buy when they were expensive.
Right. And you would have to like, there was maps. And like, if my friends would give me directions anywhere, it'd be like, okay, Sam. So I'm like the 3rd Street, you know, after the bush near like Kimmer Horson's house. And I'm like, yeah.
You know where it is. You're putting together in your mind, like what you're doing a Google Maps, like you're dropping down on the city and you're rotating it like where's, and now it does it for you and it's cool and it's very convenient.
I know.
I'm not disrespecting, but it's like,
it can be completely, it can handicap you.
Yeah.
You know, and this goes into, I know, welcome to our episode. I don't know how much you guys heard of Al and I's previous conversation, but we were just talking about like Spidey senses and intuition and how
instinct, such a big deal,
and how devices today can, yes, they can help, of course, but they can also, like, we got to get back to who we are innately, right?
It's just
how we're wired.
And it's a weird feeling. And I don't think people practice it much. They don't let their brain and their gut talk to them that much. But I always say, no one in the history of the world has ever said I shouldn't have trusted my gut.
Right.
It always, when you go, something's weird about that guy. Why are those 2 women hanging out over there?
Right.
It just looks weird. And you're like, I don't want to be weird. I don't want to be. It's like there's something in your mind that's saying, I've looked at everything.
Right.
And that stands out. And I think a lot of times when you overlook that, then you go, you know.
Well, you always hear too, when you're watching any crime series and they interview people. And unfortunately, oftentimes we hear the neighbor say, I'm not surprised, or I should have said something, or I did report it, but so-and-so, you know, the police or the mental health official or something, there's a lapse in communication and nothing was done. And it just goes to show that you're right. See something, say something.
It sounds corny, but
I know.
That's how they really caught a lot of things before they happen. When somebody's like, this guy left a weird bag on the turnstile, and this woman was like, she didn't get off the train when she should have. It's like these little things where people could have gone on with their day, but somebody said something. So
or that young girl doesn't look right, even though she's with her dad. And of course you have to be careful, because there's been situations that have become more discrimination cases because of assumptions, right? We've all heard the Karen stories. We all know there's a difference between the two. Real, normal human beings can decipher between manipulating a situation to put someone who you believe is inferior to you in a negative situation, as opposed to you're coming from a good place and you're really trying to make sure that everything's okay and that child is safe. We all know the difference between the two.
Absolutely. And I always say err on the side of caution. You know, I'd rather be called racist than not call out something that looks like sex trafficking. If I'm at a train stop, a bus station, or airport, if it looks weird, just say it. And if you're wrong, get called all the names, but you know what?
I don't
You'll be able to
think
sleep
you
that night.
would be called
No,
all the
neither do
names
I.
because I think speaking of intuition and how we're wired, we can tell when something is sincere. If you came up to me and you were like, hey, I just want to make sure that that child is yours because that child is and I would look and I'd be like, you know what, you're right. I'm having who knows, a mental breakdown or whatever it may be. At that moment, I would know you're coming from a place of sincerity instead of a place to somehow divide me from my children. You know what I mean? Or be something discriminatory.
And we've both been parents for some time and nobody's ever come up to me, and I'm assuming no one's ever come up to me and said, is that your child? So if it's clearly that rare, there must be something going on. So trust your gut. That's all I'm saying. There's a dad talk for today. Wow. Sorry, y'all.
Speaking though of devices and intuition, this leads us to our topic today. And I know some of you may have heard of her because she was all over the news. We actually covered her story. Gigi Wu, she's known as the bikini climber, the bikini hiker. And with Dying for Likes, of course, we always want to cover stories of people that take their validation a step too far. This one's a little bit different. And I want to give Gigi, may she rest in peace, the power and the legacy that she deserves, because this was an actual expert climber who, and I'm going to jump around for a minute and then we'll take you through the timeline. But Gigi Wu died in 2019 in January. And it's funny, like nobody really discusses the exact date because we know she posted a picture in December 24th where her legs were badly bruised when she was on a different hike where she fell. But she later died, and we'll talk about that in Taiwan. But here's the difference between Gigi. So Gigi, of course, became famous because of the fact that she was posting pictures of her in a bikini on top of her climbs. In fact, her whole goal was to master 100 peaks and I'm say peaks like 10,000 feet and over.
Imagine.
And she did.
I can't imagine.
And she did. And this is somebody that really loved to hike solo. But here's the caveat. We talked about being cautious. When she would talk to her followers, and she had like 30,000 on Facebook, she had more on, or she had.
Imagine where she'd be now.
I know, because this was a while ago. So you're right. But she would tell her followers, listen, when you go on these hikes, especially if you're going to be solo, you got to be wearing the right equipment. She would change into her bikini at the very, very end. So she'd be in the right equipment. She'd have the right gear. She'd say, if you're going to hike solo, you got to have, a radio, a satellite radio. You got to do this, this, and this. So she always made sure that she stressed the importance of being cautious and not doing these climbs unless you're an expert climber. Unfortunately, when she passed away, very tragically, and we'll get to all that, Al, is the whole headlines were bikini climber dies, or, what did she do? Oh, did she die because dying for likes, right? Did she die because, she was doing these extravagant, experienced hikes when she herself wasn't a hiker? Not the case. In fact, she wore her bikini for the first time at the end of a hike as a bet. So one of her friends were like, okay, you lost this bet. You have to wear a bikini on your next hike or when you reach your peak. And she did. And she got more likes that time. And she decided, okay, I'll do it again. And she got more likes and more likes and more likes. But was she doing it for validation, or was she doing it so she could continue her passion?
I think it's both. We live in a world now where, we kind of, I'm assuming like when you started your career, there was almost a machine or an apparatus set up for people that were going to be in entertainment. So when you got in entertainment, let's say in 1982, you're a young, up and coming Sally Jesse Raphael, something like that. You are put through the machine where your career grows. You have a marketing team behind you. You get to People Magazine. You start to be able to sit on the couch on some talk shows. America gets to know you. There's only 3 networks. You sit on the couch and Johnny Carson, you're famous. You're done. As a comic, if you got invited onto the couch for Johnny Carson after a good 5-minute set, you were a millionaire by the time you got backstage, because there were 3 channels, a third, 2/3 of the country watched Johnny Carson. You could sell out any venue, you're rich. So that's the way it used to be. Now, Sam, they're like, you're your marketing team, Sam. You run your Instagram, Sam. You run your Twitter. And we're going to correlate your popularity in terms of how much we elevate Sam's content in our algorithm based on your likes. So just somebody that's passionate about hiking is very noble, but to non-passionate hikers, you don't have what's called a hook.
Yeah,
Sam.
And she didn't have as many followers.
She didn't have as many followers, but you know what her hook was? She's attractive. And human beings, due to no fault or doing of her own, like to look at attractive people. It's been since the beginning of time. And we now saw this young woman who was attractive, who was doing these incredible things. And now your gaze goes from her in a bikini to what she's doing. Like, well, how did she get to the top of this? Oh, she climbed solo. She's done it before. And now we're learning about her retroactively. Is it ideal? No, I mean, in a fairy tale world, everybody just gloms onto somebody because they're passionate about something. But in reality, Sam, you got to do something to make people look. And once they're looking, once you have their attention for 1 second, you got to take it and run with it. And she did.
I agree with you. I just don't know if people dug deep enough. I don't know if anybody really knew or listened, or they just gawked at those photos. Right. And I don't know if she pushed herself to have these incredible climbs so she could take that photo in the bikini. I don't know. I do know though that she was experienced. I do know that, okay, so she died tragically at 36. She was doing one of her solo hikes. In fact, this was in the Yushan National Park, and the specific hike that she was on, she had to reach a 13,000 peak. It's a 2-day hike. Now, she always had someone that she called after 5 p.m. because that's when it was dark. Well, her friend got a phone call at 4:30 from her satellite phone, and he knew something was wrong because she's very strategic. She she had already mastered 100 climbs and always had, dotted her I's and crossed her T's.
It's that phone call at 3 a.m. and it's your mom, and you're like,
I can't, it makes my stomach sick. You saying that.
Bad.
Speaking of Spidey senses, you know immediately when you get that phone call at 3 a.m, this isn't good. And so when he got that phone call, she had fell 65 feet in a ravine. He said, this is his words, he described her voice as urgent, but not fearful. So it just goes to show that she had climbed and hiked. She was so experienced that there was a confidence there. Right. There wasn't a panic in her voice, but there was an urgency. So when she called them from her satellite phone, she knew that the temperatures were going to drop to below 0. And, of course, she had all her equipment. In fact, when they found her, the rescue team, and it took them days to find her, by the way, because, they knew her exact location because she was so experienced. She gave the coordinates. She communicated to her friend, this is what's happening. I can't move my lower body. So who knows what those injuries were? Who knows how much pain she was in? Again, according to her friend, no panic in her voice, but urgency. So when he alerted authorities, they weren't able to locate her, one, because of the time of the day, another because of temperatures, a number of different reasons. And of course, you have a slew of people then going after the rescuers. That's a whole nother topic that we can unpack. But I would like to believe that they did everything that they could, but I know that there's negligence sometimes in situations. So I don't know. I don't want to say that if, like, let's say she has family members who feel like that the rescuers did not do all they could. From what I know in this moment, they did.
Yes.
But
that's not a job that you get because you want to slack off.
Yes.
It's probably a job you get because you also love just hiking and just the paths and the people that are part of that world. So I find it hard to believe in. I'll also say this, Sam, when it comes to people kind of blaming the rescuers, wondering if people did all they could, think about like where she must have been on the planet. Right. I mean, if God forbid something happened to me here and where I had to be wheeled out on a gurney, there's still some stairs. There's still a doorway. It's still like the fence. We got to get right. And that's we're in a decent neighborhood hanging out, I don't think people realize because they watch so many movies where the star, throws a grappling hook on something and rappels down a wall. That doesn't exist. No. Sometimes the wind is going faster than cars on the highway. It's -20 and it's pitch black. And all this, like, well, here's what I would have done. That's the only, what you would have done is made it so that there were 2 people they needed to rescue. Right. So it's just that's like understand. Yeah. And that's why they don't want people doing stuff like this. And only experts do things like this. I'm giving them the benefit of that.
I am too. And I'm so glad you said that too. Again, to Gigi Wu's point, her message was always, don't do this if you're not experienced, because then you're putting the rescuers' lives not only are you putting your own life at risk, but then you're putting the rescuers' lives at risk. They have families too. Yeah. So if they're going after someone who really is dying for likes, they want to go climb this peak, do all this stuff, take all these risks so they can get that picture on top of the mountain, which does happen. We'll get to those stories. This isn't one of them, but that was Gigi Wu's point. Don't look at me and think I'm hiking in a bikini, trying to do something so risky just so I can get the validation and the popularity of all my likes. Yeah. Now hers is twofold. But you don't want to be that person that's risking everything, because you're not only risking your own life, you're risking the lives of the rescuers, because you will need to be rescued.
Right. And I would argue somebody that would be doing something like this, anxious to take their top off, put a bikini on, and kind of get their fame that way, wouldn't have been on a climb this hard.
Right.
Because their goal is to get to the top, take their stupid picture, and keep it moving to the next peak. They're looking at this like a business. Anything that would be slightly difficult, they'd be like, I'm not doing that. We've got something booked in March. We can't risk that.
Right.
This was clearly something that an expert that is passionate about this would do, because it's one of those things that if you don't love it, the amount of danger doesn't make it worth it. So
true.
Shout out to her.
She loved it. She had to get a permit. You have to get a permit to hike Jade Mountain and all these different peaks in Taiwan. And I think it's a 4-month waiting
That's
list.
the only reason I don't do it. I didn't get the permit yet.
Sure. I'm right there with you.
I wouldn't make it out of the parking lot.
I camped with Al, and Al was a horrible camper.
I don't like the outside.
Horrible. I think you gave up when you and Jeff were supposed to pitch a tent.
Yeah.
You literally gave up.
Mm-hmm.
I placed a fake snake in front of Al, and I've never seen you jump that high. Like you were like full on woods. You were like basketball, like you could dunk. You jumped so high.
I don't like it. I don't like things that could bite me around my ankles. The ground was super cold. It got super dark. I think, looking back on that, we could make some tweaks, but we got a good memory.
I have to be honest with you. I didn't enjoy spending the night in that tent on a cold floor in like 21-degree weather. I was freezing.
And we'll drop the link in so you can watch the.
Oh, we will. It's so good.
Yes,
we will. It's worth it.
Yes.
It's worth it.
Naked and Afraid. There was no.
Oh, Naked and
Clothed and Afraid. Big, way different show. Ours was clothed. Some people are naked. We're not taking.
And Afraid.
Yes.
We were not naked
never,
and afraid.
By the way.
No,
I couldn't even do it clothed. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for apparently Gigi Wu's, I did say one of her last posts was December 24th, but her final post was January 18th, where she had this epic view. And what's interesting about her is she didn't really like posting those dramatic views. She did it for the likes. She liked to take it all in herself. So I think this is me just speculating, but from what I know from doing, going down the rabbit hole with her story, is she seems like to me someone that grappled with balancing her authenticity of just being present, of just doing her solo hikes, because again, she didn't want anybody to ever join her. She loved to be alone in the wilderness. She had to grapple with that. And then the almost like commercial capitalistic nature of like posting those like Insta-worthy photos. And I'm not even talking about her bikini photos. I'm just talking about the ones that are like very predictable, literal on the top of the peak. That wasn't even her jam, but that was actually her very final post, was a beautiful, epic, dramatic view of her. I think you see her tent in there too.
Yeah, there's a lot of irony and beauty and kind of sadness as well, because her posting that means that she kind of, did what we all have to do, which is be capitalist.
Right.
And I kind of wish that I hope that maybe there was some that we didn't see, that she got a chance to just enjoy by herself. But I definitely get that part of it.
What a strong woman, though. What a strong woman, because I believe it was, how many hours was she there waiting? 43 hours. 43 hours she was waiting. I mean,
mental toughness.
They believe she died of hypothermia. That's what the final I don't want to call it a diagnosis, what it would be like the final
or autopsy or medical examiner.
But she was found underneath one of those like aluminum blankets, a flashlight. Again, she had her gear with her at all times. But tough. I mean, I can't imagine if you can't move from the waist down, and she already had her previous injuries from her other fall. I can't imagine what she was experiencing, but she still had the calm and the collection of phoning someone, giving her coordinates, not being panicked, strong. And that's what I want. Even dying for likes. Yes, we're going to unpack those stories that are completely gratuitous, completely stupid, that cost you your life, that cost a child their parent, or whatever you want to call it. This one is different. This is somebody that, unfortunately, because she's beautiful, because she was in a bikini, got boiled down to a bikini climber who risked their life to get likes, and it was her demise. I don't see it that way.
No, because you could have very easily seen this happen with no cameras around. Things like this happen with people that go deep sea diving, people that do the squirrel jump, whatever that is, where you just jump off. I don't know. Our producer Kelly just made a face. Do you squirrel jump?
Do you squirrel suit? Okay, Kelly doesn't squirrel suit.
Yeah. So it's like, but people, there's like I always say, there are people that are addicted to drugs, and there's people that are addicted to adrenaline, which is also a drug. And you see these people, we will cover a lot of them, but there are people that do extreme things. And some people are just, you knew them as little kids. They were like, I'm going to do a backflip off the garage. And you're like, what? You know, but it's just in some people without being told. And her drive to become,
I think their brains are different.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I forget what we covered, you know, and, you know, we can, I'm sure this is going to come up with every single episode, but I believe they saw that there's some sort of like difference in their brain activity where it's, of course, you're right that it's craving, but there's actually something completely different that makes them that way.
I could absolutely see that. Just the dopamine of just getting that little burst of probably not knowing is what does it for people. Do you like
that?
That's not my jam.
That's not my jam. I think I can go either way though.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could, and I would. I mean, I think I get that from going on stage.
Yes, you do.
But I never sought that, but I guess I kind of did, because I went and got on stage. You know, I never thought about that.
Have you ever done anything risky? Dangerous. Have you jumped off, skydived? Have you bungee cord jumped? Have you done anything like that?
I jumped off the stratosphere in Vegas.
You did?
Yes.
Was that
show I used to host. Yes.
But you did it because you were hosting a show.
I did it. I had a hangover that could have killed a bull. I was so hungover. I did not know we were shooting that early. And I am up there about to jump off the stratosphere. It's that big pointy building, the tallest building in Vegas. You go outside, Sam.
I'm nervous thinking about
it. The wind is whipping. Like, I mean, the wind is like so intense you can't hear anything, and you're just outside looking at Vegas.
And you have to jump off a building.
Yes, you jump off the side, and you're kind of on a harness, so you jump, and it's a free fall for like 4 seconds.
No, thank you.
And then it kind of grabs you almost like a winch, like a pulley would for like on a truck that was pulling a stump out of the ground. It kind of grabs you, and then you slow her down like the last 10 feet, but it's just a free fall.
Were you nervous?
I was still probably drunk from the night before, but I was still but if I didn't have any in me, I would have never done it. I was like, I don't feel like doing this. And when I got out there, I was like, oh, this is not.
No. How'd you feel afterwards? Like, did you feel like you were on top of the world?
I did, but I was like, that wasn't safe.
Yeah.
I was like, that wasn't.
You hear the bungee cord stories gone wrong.
Things happen.
I had to, it's so funny that you and I like got pushed to the limit because we were hosting. I don't have it in me to, like, would I ride like a motorcycle really fast? Something like that. Yes. But I must have a thing with heights, because I would never bungee cord jump. I would never jump out of a plane. So I was hosting a show for MTV Australia, and I had to jump out of a plane, 10,000 feet. I was like, no. But of course, it's MTV where you have to be like, yeah. So I was like, oh my gosh. So the cameras are on me the whole way up. And those planes are gnar.
They're rickety.
They're gnarly. They're not the planes that you're used to. You're up like this. They're rickety. The whole side of the plane is a door that's about to open up, and it's clear.
Right.
So you're looking out that door. It's loud. And you're like, I'm about to be thrown out that door, and you go up fast 10,000 feet. And that was the worst part. I remember my legs shaking, but every time the camera would be on me, I'd be like, woo! My knees are like buckling, my stomach's sick. And I'm like, I can't believe I have to do this. I can't believe I have to do this. Come on, Sam, you got this. You got this. And when they and so when the guy that I was like on the back of, like, they thought they'd be cool. The guy, like, oh, it's MTV. He dangled me for a little bit. So he goes off like this, and I'm just like dangling. I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. I just wanted to throw up and say, stop. I literally had a panic attack. And anyways, we did the jump. Everything was great. But I will tell you, when I hit that ground, man, I've never felt a high. As horrific as the ride up was, as horrific as all of it was, I'm not built for that. Right. But I've never had a high. That and that boxing match I did. Never have I had a high in my life like that. So I get it. I get it.
I think that's why somebody, when you talk to certain people, they're like, oh, I've had 950 actual jumps. I've had 14 professional fights. And you're like, wait, what? But I think it's terrifying, but when you do it and you experience it, and no matter how it goes, you just know that there's no going back. You now know what that feels like, right. And you are kind of constantly chasing that. And I think that might be the case in some of these situations. So
I think so too with Gigi too. I just want to like full circle back to her. She, as a solo hiker, didn't do it for, I know later Instagram, Facebook all came into play after that dare, but can you imagine a solo hike? You're doing it specifically for yourself, right? When she would go to the peak, a lot of the time she didn't take photos until she became more famous, but she was on top of that mountain. Like I was jumping out, looking at the camera, being like, "Bleh," like obviously doing it for someone else. Let's be honest.
Absolutely.
I was doing it for someone else. I was doing it for the paycheck. I was doing it to be cool. Sam did not want to do that. I got to give Gigi credit because all those climbs, the 100 climbs that nobody saw all by herself, making it 10, 12, 15,000 feet up high, all by herself for her own gratification.
Right. And I think that's the hardest thing. The thing I keep wrestling with when we talk about this story is the fact that there had to be a moment where she finally breaks down. She's like, I'm going to post this beautiful sunset. I'm going to post, this picture I think people will really like, which is really personal to me, but I'll still post it. And then like, after she breaks down and kind of has this internal dialogue back and forth, should I do it or not? She's like, okay, I'll do it. And she puts it out there and it's the internet waiting for her. So it's like, yeah, nice cloud.
I know.
Okay. Yeah. You did something with the camera. It's only like 5,000.
Right.
My brother did that.
Right.
And you're just like, I didn't want to do this anyway.
Yep.
So like, I can only imagine,
I know. So we here today, we're giving her the props, the credit, her legacy, expert climber, expert hiker.
A warrior. How about that? Just the mental toughness, like to the end.
Yep.
To the end, and she went out like a G.
She did.
Right went out like her
tough,
on her shield.
Strong, doing exactly what she loves.
Yeah.
So may Gigi Wu rest in power. We hope that giving you guys all this information, if you did hear of the bikini climber, now you know who she really is.
Sorry. Thanks.